Hello, welcome back to the channel Darkness to Christ. Today I'm doing a video looking at why Muslim voters and Islam is the most progressive religion in the world. Now the reason I'm doing this video is because I was watching the PDB podcast and a lot of the Muslims were accusing the Christians, rightly so, for some part, of being supporting liberal and secularism rather than Christianity. And this comes from the idea, and again, that Muslims are somewhat correctly saying is that Christianity is not standing up to, the woke agenda, the progressive agenda that goes against Christianity. And their argument is that Islam is the answer. Now, whilst they may have a point, I'm going to debunk it, or Muslims themselves are going to debunk it in this video. And before I really get into the stats and everything, I want you to know I am not a Christian. So I am looking at this from a neutral point. I am a born again, spiritually, follower of Christ, child of God. I don't engage in religion because I've researched them all and I realised that whilst they contain some truths, there's a lot of lies in there mixed, and it doesn't lead us to the Father. It actually takes us away from the Father. So I'm not coming at this from a Christian point of view looking to criticise Islam. I'm just looking at it from a neutral point of view. And if you look through my videos, there's plenty of videos where I criticise or debunk certain parts of Christianity. And if there's any doubts, I actually agree with certain parts of Islam in that I don't believe Christ claimed to be God, and I am more of a monotheist. I do believe, however, that Jesus Christ is a prophet, but if you do your research, it's clear that he wasn't the Jewish Messiah. However, he is a prophet, or the Logos, or the Christ, if you wish, at worst. And if not that, he was just the greatest teacher of all time. Now, let's get into the video, just that I've cleared that up. Now, one thing we see is Jesus said, you will know them by their fruits. So this idea that Andrew Tate says, and you see a lot of these Muslims, Christians are so weak and too tolerant and pathetic. Now, one thing we know is that the woke agenda is a leftist agenda. It's very much a liberal agenda. So if you're going to vote against liberalism, so if you're voting against abortion and all these things that are going on, and the LGBT and all this progressive stuff, that Joe Biden is the most liberal administration ever, you would vote Republican, or especially for Donald Trump. You would not be voting for Joe Biden. As I say, Joe Biden, clearly the most progressive president, maybe one of the most progressive politicians and administrations ever. And we knew this before he was voted in. You knew what you were voting for. And we have a look here, 69% of American Muslims voted for Joe Biden. Now, how does that match up with Muslims being against the woke agenda? And I looked into it, and I was seeing why is that? And someone made a very good point in that Muslims don't want to vote for George Bush because of the Iraq wars. So they would not vote Republican because George Bush was a Republican president, caused the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. And to me, that makes sense. And that's a fair point, because the Iraq-Afghanistan wars was probably the greatest crime in the last 30 to 50 years of humanity. Just destroyed the East and the West and caused so much division and problems. So it makes sense that they wouldn't vote for a Republican president. However, if we go to the UK, who was the president? It was, or the Prime Minister in the UK was, and the party in power was Tony Blair. So Tony Blair was the one who voted for or pushed the Iraq war, all the weapons of mass destruction lie. It was a complete lie. So it would make sense then that in the UK that Muslims would not vote for Labour, because obviously you wouldn't vote for a party that promoted the war that killed millions, hundreds of thousands of innocent Muslims and people in the East, as well as Western people, soldiers going over to fight. So let's have a look. 72% of British Muslims vote Labour. They vote for the Progressive Party. And in the UK, again, whilst both parties are somewhat woke, Labour and the left liberal agenda are the ones who promote it. But if anything, in the UK, not if anything, in America, 69% voted for the left. In Britain, more, 72% of British Muslims vote liberal. They vote for the progressive agenda. And again, if you're a Muslim, you know what the Labour are like. You know that they're pro-abortion. You know they're pro-LGBTQ. So it doesn't make any sense. Why do they vote for Labour? And that's a genuine question. It doesn't make any sense. If they're against the agenda, it doesn't make any sense. And then you say, well, what would Muslim politicians? We have Sadiq Khan. Very much, admittedly, he is a Muslim. He is the most woke politician in the country. Everything is so woke. He supports all the agendas in play. And then we go to Scotland, the new Scottish First Minister. He is a Muslim, and asked whether gay sex is a sin. He replied, no, it is not a sin. And he told Sophie Ridge of Sky News, I believe that people's marriage, if they are gay and they are married, that their marriage is no more inferior or worth less than my marriage as a heterosexual individual. So again, a Muslim Prime Minister of Scotland agrees with the woke agenda. Now, to be fair, again, I looked into this more for details, and there was just a random video of Mohammed Hijab, and he went against it, to be fair to him, and he said that the Scottish First Minister is wrong when it comes to Islam, and that he basically said that he's not a real Muslim and he should be kicked out of the religion. I'm not sure if I'm 100% correct on that, but it was along the lines of, look, this is not real. He's talking nonsense, basically. So the question is, if this Scottish minister is then 72% of British Muslims and 69% of American Muslims, that they also should be excommunicated and kicked out of the religion. Because, to be fair, they're not following what the religion teaches. So which is it? Do you follow the religion, or are you going to follow what the Western so-called progressive society says, even though that's not necessarily true? Because I looked up, I thought, well, okay, how do Christians vote? Let's have a look compared to Muslims. 58% of Anglicans, which is the Church of England, vote Tory. So the general Christian votes against the woke agenda. So they're very much standing up against the woke agenda. And there's this idea, you look at the Church of England and you see all the nonsense of how woke they've gone, but still 58% of Anglicans vote for the Tory, the anti-progressive, even though they're mostly progressive as well, but as a general view. Interestingly, 42% of Catholics vote Labour. So Catholics actually vote much higher than your regular Christians. And I do have some problems with Catholicism. It doesn't, I don't like religion, but Catholics seem to be even worse than general, like Church of England Catholic. But that's a story for another video. And let's go again. An overwhelming majority, 85% of Muslims in 2017 say they would vote Labour. So again, when you look at the statistics, and it's the same in America and it's the same all over Europe, that Christians vote overwhelmingly in favour of conservative values, whereas Muslims vote overwhelmingly in favour of liberal progressive values. So, as Jesus said, you'll know them by their fruits. Forget the agenda and the sort of things that people want to push. In reality, Christians are standing up against it, whereas Muslims are not at the voting booth. Now, maybe Muslims will make a correct analysis and saying, look, the ones who are voting they're not real Muslims, and if anything, they shouldn't even be getting involved in politics. And they may have a point, but in terms of how they vote in the West, they are very much in line with it. And I want to end this video by also saying how I find it very interesting how Muslims are always saying, oh, Christians are too tolerant, you're too tolerant. However, when Christians or secular people or atheists rightly criticise certain parts of Islam, such as the violence that can be done, the abuse of children. For example, I saw a story the other day about an honour killing. A father killed his daughter for going against a certain part of the religion. And we also see how when they were on the podcast, they were saying that if someone leaves Christianity and Muslims implemented Sharia law in America, then those people who left Islam would be killed. Whenever we come out and say that's wrong, what happens? Oh, you're Islamophobes. You're Islamophobes. You're not tolerant of our religion. So, it's okay for us to apparently, or it's not okay for us to apparently be too tolerant. Oh, Christians, you're too tolerant. You're too tolerant when we're talking about things you disagree with. However, when we rightly criticise even worse things than what the so-called woke agenda are doing, you're talking about murder, child abuse, child marriage, murdering children for not going along with the certain parts of the religion. Now all of a sudden, oh, you're not tolerant enough of our precious religion. Now we're all weak. You're not accepting of us. You need to be more tolerant. So we know what's going on. We know that you're playing a game and you're not interested in what's right and serving the Father. You're interested in power and religion. You don't love God, you love your religion. And all religions, again, I'm not a Christian. Christians, Muslims, Jews, all 40,000 denominations of Christianity, they do not love the Father. They love their religion. They love their ideology, which is of the ego. Whereas me, I have been born again spiritually and my ego no longer exists. That's why I don't identify with Christianity or Islam or any religion. And I see how they have been corrupted by Satan and controlled by Satan to cause war, violence, and nonsense in the world. And what people need to do is leave religion, become born again, and we can bring the kingdom of heaven to earth, and we will actually defeat all this progressive evil, the religious evil, the violence, and all this stuff that goes on in the world. So that's the end of my video today. I think I wanted to put that out there. If you like it, subscribe for more, and God bless everyone. Goodbye.